All right, I know that Dr. Gill is on the way, but I do know some folks need to leave right on time. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. And as folks trickle in, totally fine. And in Zoom land, hello as well. And I will jump back and forth to try to allow people into the room if anybody jumps in late. So thank you all so much for coming. This is the first in something we hope will actually be a continuing series. We wanted to start offering these in order to have those informal, casual conversations. So instead of folks learning something per se directly through instruction and then hoping that folks go out and remember everything you learned, we wanted to start these off with just a casual conversation and discussion where we can talk about the different issues that we're facing. So this panel's focus is going to be on AI. We will have 2 more this spring. We'll have another one on neurodiversity and another one on trauma-informed care. So they will be once a month. So again, we've sent out the save the date, but trust me, we will keep spamming you with that information. And those will also be available for you all online. There'll be a Zoom link as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Denise Woetzel, who is the lead instruction librarian here at Reynolds. Margaret Haske, the coordinator of the Writing Center. Dr. Thom Addington, the Associate Dean of Humanities and Social Sciences. And our outside guest, Dr. Peyton Burgess. He is the Emerging Technologies Program Manager and Instructor of English and Education at Virginia Commonwealth University. And in his job, he actually is specializing in AI and higher education. So we can hear a little bit about what's happening with an institution that we partner with. And Dr. Satinder Gill, who is a professor of electrical and computer engineering, will be joining us momentarily. All right, well, without further ado, the format of today is pretty simple. Let me admit this next person. We have some questions we've solicited from folks via a survey that I talked to people on our faculty advisory committee. So we're just going to go through those questions and let the panelists each take an opportunity to answer. Panelists, please know that if you go a little off the topic that's tangentially related, that's okay. We want a conversation. And I'm going to attempt to save the last 15 minutes or so from any other questions or comments from the crowd that may arise as we are listening to our panelists. Okay, so I'm going to switch positions. The microphone, we can just pass it all around. Okay, so the first question we have for our panelists is, how have you seen AI tools impact teaching, learning, or student supports? So basically, how has it been impacting your particular office? And we'll just start right down at the end, Denise.
Okay, well, I've personally used AI to revise drafts I create for emails, workshops, job descriptions, job interview questions.
I can hear you online and you don't use that.
Okay, so yeah, I personally use it as a lead instruction librarian for my job in revising drafts I create for email, workshops, and even job descriptions and job interview questions. And it saved me a lot of time with these writing tasks, although, you know, I go through several revisions before I get it the way I want it. I have read and heard about librarians helping students learn how to use AI for specific tasks such as brainstorming for topics, narrowing down topics, using AI to suggest search techniques and keywords. And AI has provided us librarians with information literacy opportunities, such as collaborating with instructors on developing and facilitating sessions for students on how to evaluate and verify information generated by AI tools. And here at Reynolds, we developed an AI workshop that we offer a few times a semester, and one is scheduled for next Wednesday at 11 a.m., not next Wednesday, next Monday. And this workshop covers how to write effective prompts and evaluate and verify the credibility of sources by comparing ChatGPT, Google, and Google Scholar. And I know, not here at Reynolds, but I know some library database vendors are starting to incorporate AI tools in their databases to summarize or analyze documents in the database. One of our main database vendors, EBSCO, is beta testing something called AI Insights, which I wish we had access to, which summarizes several key points of an article that students will bring up the article and it will summarize key points. And then we do have our Westlaw Edge database for paralegal students that does include a litigation analytics feature. So those are just a few of the things I'm noticing right now.
So I got into looking at AI through AI art and creating visuals. It's super fun. And if you use Canva, you get these boring sort of like flyers where you're like, oh, that's a Canva flyer. So I've been trying to use it for marketing and creating things that are really interesting and that my students might learn even a little bit more about art or something. Like I put in Red Hawks at Hawks Diner by Edward Hopper, and it comes up, it's really captivating. So we've been doing that with a lot of our flyers and putting things around that help to bring students into the studio. I think we're in a strange position, and maybe Denise as well, in that we see on a lot of syllabi, do not use AI to complete your assignments. And what does that mean? There's a difference, I think, between asking AI to do your assignment and using AI to learn concepts or skills that you might need more practice with. So even the idea of like, we see a lot of students that come in and they're like, what's a hook? And so they don't know what a hook is, or they're thinking about TikTok and, hey guys, that doesn't really work for an academic essay. And we can create an interactive, generative experience for them where they're being taught or can delve more deeply after a session with us on topics that they might need help with, where AI is asking them questions, they're giving answers, and they're really trying to learn a new skill or concept. Now, we're not really using that yet because we really are cognizant of, we want to make sure that once we begin to do this with students, it's a very thoughtful process, and we have clear resources for them to support them in writing prompts, and what is the difference between using AI as a writing tool and using it as a learning tool. So we're hoping to generate some of these materials over the summer and then start working with people in the fall, and also reaching out to faculty to ask how they would like us to use AI. Like one thing I think that's interesting for me for English language learners is taking a text and asking it to create a glossary of terms for a certain level of readers. It can do it so quickly. And how helpful would that be for students who are learning a new language of English? So I think there's some interesting ways we can start using it, but we want to be thoughtful about our approach.
Thank you. Coming from the academic affairs side of the house, I think AI's impacted three distinct but related areas. And that first would be assessment, grading, and creation, right? I was a department chair the day Turnitin launched its AI checker feature. I went to class in the morning. When I came back, everyone was out of their offices like, did you know what this can do now? So now how we are expecting students to submit work. What does the submission process look like? How are we grading assessments? And then the use of AI checkers, right? What is something that's a reliable, useful way to sort of preempt this in student work? The second, I think, would be like materials used. How are you finding things that are not readily or like susceptible to being drawn into like an AI engine and being able to be summarized easily? If you couldn't tell, I'm coming from an English background, so all of mine are about text and papers and writing. That last area, I think, would be academic honesty and conduct. right? Now I think the balance we're having to strike is coming at it from a place of grace and giving a student grace. This is a new tool that is constantly developing, and we're always sort of on the back foot tracing that development. How do you give them the opportunity to learn from an experience while also imparting the importance of academic honesty and integrity, right, in the production of work? I think Grammarly is like one of these instances. What constitutes AI, right? How is it being used for my work? Now Grammarly's functionality is expanded. It can do so much more because it's like drawing on all these new capacities. In general, I think if you linked all these together, from the faculty side, it seems like we're moving to preempt, right? Or prevent or think around. But I'm sort of heartened to see there's strides being made, I think, Margaret, like you were mentioning, to incorporate AI, right? And have it be part of a collaborative learning process.
Yeah, we're seeing a very similar thing with Grammarly at BCU. In fact, Grammarly is the most used AI tool that we have. Closely behind that, you have, of course, your Chat GPTs and Claude, things like that. But really what I've noticed is that it is so context dependent. A lot of faculty, when we meet with faculty, like Faculty Senate and other committees where faculty are discussing these kind of issues, the big thing is like faculty want a policy. They want to know how to engage with their students with the use of AI. And unfortunately, it's not that, clear. It really depends on not just what you're teaching, the learning outcomes, but also, as a teacher, your philosophy and how you think you should help your students accomplish those learning outcomes. So the policy is whatever your policy is, essentially. And so I look at it as actually an opportunity for faculty to embrace their academic freedom. That is really a matter of academic freedom. Now we can provide guidance, I think, that's useful. We can help people grapple with these questions and these concerns and allow them to grapple with those questions in the context of their specific discipline, what they teach and how they teach. The mode in which they teach. Do they teach online? Do they teach in person? Those kind of things. So I think policy, when you think about policy in academia, it's that should be left pretty broad. And I think policy's main, I think, goal should be to protect ourselves, protect our students, and protect our data. But as far as practices, teaching practices and assessment and instructional practices, I really do believe that's up to the teacher, and it's guided by whatever their discipline, their course outcomes are, their teaching philosophy, and how they think their teaching philosophy aligns with what they owe their students. Personally, it depends on what mode I'm operating in. When I teach creative writing, I tell my students, there's no point in you taking this class if you're just going to use generative AI tools to accomplish the assignments. Like, that's not what we're here for, right? We might use it to help us do a craft analysis of a short story. Give me some guidance on how, the writing strategies this writer utilized to impact the reader in a certain way. That can be helpful for students to help them start entering in those kind of conversations and dialogues with the text. But in terms of, actual creative writing, I say no. That's not what we're here for. But then when I'm teaching my project management course for School of Ed, it's completely different. Like, I have a completely different philosophy. My syllabus statement on generative AI is completely different. We're using generative AI tools every single week. It's part of our iterative assessment, where they are developing a project plan and then actually utilizing generative AI to have to engage in a conversation with generative AI so that they're experiencing the deployment and execution of a project, and then actually documenting those things as they are fed, as they are given hypotheticals from whatever they're using, be it Claude or ChatGPT, to feed them different hypotheticals. So really, it's so context specific, our use of generative AI.
Thank you, panel. Dr. Gill? Come join us. We just do things flexibly here at Seal. Okay, so, great first answers. I think a lot of you all were starting to lead into our next question. So I'll just work my way back down, so for, Peyton to talk again. But our second question is, in your opinion, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges that AI brings to higher education?
Opportunities, opportunities, well, gosh, I think we're discovering those like every week, really. We're finding out new ways that we can, integrate AI into our existing workflows to make them more efficient. I see that a lot happening in School of Business where they're, supply chain management, that's a huge, that's being impacted by, integration of Copilot and other tools, to really increase efficiency. And so that you're not spending all your time analyzing spreadsheets or even, interpreting spreadsheets for a presentation. There's tools with Copilot that do all that for you. The problem there, though, is that I think you missed some of the important things that happen along the journey, right? So if I'm in like a self-driving automobile, I can just take a big snooze and go to sleep while it's getting me from point A to point B. But once I get to point B, I'm gonna have a very limited understanding of the contextual understanding of point B if I don't know what it took to get there. And I didn't see the landscapes that got me there. I didn't experience the, driving on the interstate or driving through the country or just what you see, right? So I think the challenge will be making sure that we don't lose critical analysis and that we don't lose our ability to interpret and make observations and then make better informed decisions because of those contextual understandings that you achieve throughout process.
Yeah, I think my answer sort of piggybacks off that. I think that we're at a juncture where we can and probably should think about how we're transforming pedagogy and the disciplines that we're working in, right? I think part of that is looking at moving away from assessing product or material to really looking at like tracing and assessing process. To like put it in English context and look at ChatGPT, if the object in a sort of now soon becoming antique way of thinking about teaching composition is you have to produce language or writing that sounds like it was written or produced by a critical thinking process at the college level. Well, ChatGPT can do that. You can plug it in, make this sound like a college essay, and it will do that, right? How do we shift away from, can you just produce this writing at command versus how are you honing that critical thinking capacity that produces that work, right? What might a writing assignment look like if the paper was more or less irrelevant? If I'm looking and tracing, how do you, through a process of questioning and thinking and drawing in different resources, create something like that, right? So that's at the same time exciting and really, really scary, right? I like teaching my texts and my books and, essays, but it's an opportunity, right, to start thinking outside the box. I also think it's an opportunity to rethink the way we sell the value of what we do to students, right? And the value of the classes, even down to the value, why am I doing this essay assignment? What is, why? That's also scary, right? Especially if you have not thought about, well, I don't know, it's because that's what I had to do in graduate school and it's what I was trained to do as a teacher pedagogically, so now I'm making you do it. Scary, but I don't know, fun and exciting at the same time.
You, so for me, from engineering perspective, I believe there are way too many opportunities that AI brings than really any challenges associated with it. The reason I'm saying this is if we can teach students how to use AI in a proper way, it could be really helpful. I can give you an example of myself. When I was taught programming, I spent 75% of my time trying to look for what command do I need to use rather than thinking of what is the process behind it, what I'm doing. So now that's gone. With AI, ChatGPT, if you ask any questions to ChatGPT, it can tell you, yes, this is the command you need. As I always say, if I'm talking about programming, it's about writing a story. You can write a story in English, you can write a story in French, you can use any language, but you have to have a thought process to know how to write a story. So now our students can focus on that rather than learning the language itself. I mean, from engineering perspective, that's just one example, but there are tons of examples out there. And I think I don't know if promoting is a correct word, but I want students to know that there's something out there that you can use. But how to use it is important. When I work on assignments or I give assignments to students, I make sure that if they're using ChatGPT, it's not that they are copying from there. So I formulate it in a way that they need to understand it. So there are tons of opportunities. I mean, think about time that you're gonna spend looking for things, then applying those. Of course, there are challenges, doesn't matter what you say. There are people who are going to do it, use it in a way that they should not be. But I think if we properly formulate questions that promote critical thinking, even if students are using AI, it could really be beneficial. It's my thoughts on that.
Yes, and not just the idea too of critical thinking, but I have this fear that efficiency is going to replace joy and learning and appreciating. And when does efficiency become an obstacle to learning? And when does it become a tool to enhance my ability to possibly do other things? So I think students often see it as efficiency is the end goal. And so we really need to sort of slow things down. One of the challenges I think about higher education, especially right now, where students maybe weren't in high school and learned how to use AI, whose responsibility is it to teach them? And are workshops that are voluntarily chosen, are those enough for our whole student body? So I think we need to decide, where do our students learn how to use it as a helpful tool and how to use it ethically?
So some of what I'm going to say has already been addressed, but I think in my case, for my work, the biggest opportunity is saving faculty and staff time with the routine administrative tasks, and that allows us to focus more on providing support to students. And AI chatbots can provide 24/7 assistance to students. A plus, such as guidance in connecting students with research, writing, and tutoring help. But chatbots don't have that personalized human element. And it can be a challenge to develop and update these tools to effectively or correctly answer student questions. So AI, I think, should be used to complement or supplement, not replace human interaction and support. And then I think the biggest challenge is AI. I have tools, which has been addressed, have made it easier for students to cheat or not, or that can hinder deeper learning. And so students who over-rely on AI tools are not putting in the work to develop the skills required for assignments, which include learning more about a particular subject by reading about it, researching, and writing about it. And we need to offer more professional development opportunities for our faculty and staff to learn about and use AI. And with this ever growing and rapidly developing technology, this could be a challenge, to keep up with it, and for academic institutions to continually update their policies and curriculum. And also, there are faculty who are, right now, there's faculty resistant to adopting AI tools and prefer traditional teaching and learning methods. And also, another challenge is implementing AI in higher education that requires a significant investment with the technology and the technical support. And this will be addressed in another question, but another challenge is AI tools do generate inaccurate and biased information, which requires us to focus even more so on critically evaluating the information that's generated. And also, there are AI tools that will save prompts from users, which raises concerns about surveillance and misuse. That's all.
Thank you. So moving on to our next question, which a lot of you again have already addressed. How can AI be used to support both faculty and students while maintaining academic integrity?
Okay. Do you want me to start that? Okay, so instructors should provide clear guidelines on AI usage in their syllabi and assignments. And this includes specifying when AI use is permitted or prohibited, and how to properly attribute or give credit when it's allowed to use the AI generated content. And the library did, the Reynolds Libraries did create an AI in education guide, which does provide links to web pages on how to cite generative AI if that's allowed in APA and MLA format. And it's important for both faculty and students to be transparent. Is that? Make it die. It's important for faculty and students to be transparent about the use of AI tools. And this includes students disclosing when AI has been used to assist them in completing assignments. I think faculty can develop discussion assignments for their courses on how to ethically use AI. And this can help students think about and understand the importance of using AI responsibly and the potential consequences of misusing AI. And then also, discussions or other assignments can be incorporated on that include evaluating the accuracy and the reliability of information generated from AI tools. And this can help students understand AI's capabilities and limitations. And faculty should consider designing assignments that evaluate the learning process and not just the final product. And then I'll just mention about plagiarism tools. They can serve as a starting point for faculty to identify potential academic integrity issues. However, I think these tools should be used cautiously to avoid unfairly penalizing students.
Yeah, I think the idea of using notes and sharing that you're using AI is really important. I think right now it's a secret that students feel they need to hide from their professors because it's not allowed. And so if they use it to brainstorm a research topic, which to me seems like a really good use of AI, because some of our students don't have they don't understand like the social issues that are important in Richmond, Virginia, or those kind of things. And so, you know, it would actually help move the topics to more critical thinking rather than just how does social media affect teen mental health? And those kind of things that we see over and over and over. So I think I got a little off topic, but just opening up the discussion. So if a student uses it for brainstorming and notes it on their paper, then the teacher can say, hey, what did you do? What did you ask AI? And start talking about it and letting it become a more collaborative process.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point about how students tend to hide that they are using AI, and we should be pretty clear about that. You know, if you're using AI, you cite it, but not. And one of the challenge, I believe, that students tend to do that is, but they think no one else is using it. It's true. One of the things I think we can do, and I do it, I don't hide the fact that I use AI, that I use ChatGPT, and why should I be hiding it? There's no reason to hide it. If I'm using it to work efficiently. It's a tool. It's there. It's going to be there. So I think that's a great point. We should be open about it. Let them understand that this is a tool and they can use it accordingly. Now, of course, students need to understand the limitations as well. I do a quick test regarding that in my assignments. I will give them to write a short report, and I will say, all right, well, you can use AI, you can use ChatGPT, but you need to provide 10 references. Now, here's the interesting thing. AI can generate references for you. The only problem is those references don't exist. It can generate references for you, those references don't exist. So that's a good learning for students. All right, I'm using AI, professor is fine with it, nothing wrong, and in general, I should use it, but I need to understand the limitations of AI. So I think it's more knowledge they have, better they can use it to work efficiently, to do things much more faster, and to spend time where they should be, which is understanding the process. And of course, you know, I'm not being a native English speaker, so there are people like me who need help with grammar and all that. So there are students like that, they can use it. So, you know, absolutely, like everyone said, we should be open about it, how to use it. That's what I think about AI.
Yeah, I think practically, how can we use AI to support both faculty and students? On the faculty side, there's an administrator using ChatGPT to standardize things like SOPs, right? Processes, and having to put things together and figure out, gosh, how have we done that? Well, there was one person who did it this way for 20 years and now they're gone and they took their computer with them and no one knows what to do. Coming up with and standardizing sort of processes, right? That's not a Reynolds dig. That's just that's my own trauma coming back up. But and I think I've seen ChatGPT or other like AI implements used when you're trying to figure out standard communications that go out to large groups, right? How are we ensuring that everyone is on message? I think it could, I'm just sort of going on the top of my head, be interesting to figure out and have AI help with coordinating a course schedule, right? If I need to move through material at a certain pace or really emphasize certain skills, what might that look like, right? It would be interesting in trying to set up a syllabus, right? Is there a way that AI can be used to say, how do we make this the most accessible version of a course that it could be, right? But I'm thinking about support in that way, like on the back end, in a more sort of values, ideas mode. I think being able to incorporate AI as much as possible will lead us into, I think, important conversations about the value of integrity itself. I think we present integrity with the assumption that, yes, everyone believes that this is important and it's valuable and should be cultivated. But, you know, turn on the news, right? I think the ethics and their importance and, you know, moral judgment, all of these things are in circulation. And having AI as sort of the juncture or the clinch point to say, okay, let's have a conversation about this. What is the value and the importance of cultivating integrity, right, in an ethical sensibility?
I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what Thom was saying. I think a lot of teachers and faculty, I think their time is kind of nickel and dimed a lot with meetings and committee work and that kind of thing. And so I think a lot of those communications, a lot of the, you know, meeting minutes, those sort of things can be, you can lean on AI to help you carry that load, so that you're not, you know, you're not taking up all your time with the busy work. And in a similar way, you can do that a little bit in the classroom, I think, too, when appropriate, you know, when it comes to figuring out basic communications and schedules. And maybe if you feel comfortable working it into some formative assessments as well. So for example, we have faculty that use a patient bot to help students develop communication rapport, how they actually communicate with a patient. That can be helpful for a formative assessment. That's just like a pass-fail experience, right? So they're not necessarily doing something that's a more significant summative assessment. I think those are the situations where the faculty member should be there and they should be providing the feedback. But you know, we can help students have more formative experiences, I think, if we leverage some of these tools. Another thing I wanted to touch on. Students, I think, you know, I agree. A lot of the students I've encountered, I think, assume that they just shouldn't be using it. And so I think that's going to be sort of a gradual process within higher education where we allow students to understand that, you know, we actually want you to feel empowered to use these tools when appropriate and responsibly. And I think faculty should use it as an opportunity to actually model that behavior, and not just say like, no, don't use it. You know, use it how, you know, maybe I can show you how to use it responsibly and when appropriate. So some of this is an opportunity, I think, for faculty to engage with instruction in a new manner. And I think it requires us to take a step back and look at our courses that we teach, our assessments, you know, our instructional approaches, and consider, you know, okay, what are some of the changes that I should maybe make in my classroom? What can I do differently now? Under the assumption that my students want to know what they should be doing with these tools, because the world is telling them they should be asking those questions. They're hearing it outside of the classroom every day. So, you know, it would be bizarre for them to enter into this weird silo where that is just not happening. So I think finding that safe place for the student to engage with the work in the context of your discipline is really important.
Thank you. I've got one more question I really want to ask before we open it up to the floor. And I won't put anybody on the spot. I'll take volunteers. How do you all see AI shaping job prospects for our graduates? And how can we prepare our students for the workforce that expects them to have these AI skills?
I don't know, I think that this is gonna be a super heavy lift, and I doubt anyone would want to like volunteer to lead that, but I think it should be like an first year required course, the ethical use of AI that every student takes and gets like put into our credentials. I mean, if you're looking at what are employers looking for, it's can this person ethically use these tools? And I don't know of maybe a handful of institutions that are kind of thinking that far ahead and coming up with like coursework and internship, externship experiences to match that, but, I think there's very few, if any, that are thinking in that direction. Now, yeah, that sounds great. Thom, let's put that course on the books and keep moving. Who's gonna update it when AI is changing so rapidly? Who's gonna design that course? I mean, I'm like now in fear that it might be me. But, yeah, I mean, I think that would be cool, and it's something that, I know employers are like asking about and looking for. So then, and even the process of working with AI, this is gonna sound like a detour, but we'll come back to the original point. As a good millennial, I don't do the TikTok, I get all my TikToks as Instagram Reels. There's a reel about the use of AI that takes this, like fraud scene from the Damien Chazelle film Whiplash. There's a music instructor and a student that are having a back and forth, and the instructor is sort of really berating and barraging the student with all of these asks and expectations. And the joke is, oh, this is me using ChatGPT to write my final paper at the last minute. But if you look at all of the things that J.K. Simmons' character is doing in the context of the TikTok, right? It's asking ChatGPT, use these kinds of paragraphs, now add a counterpoint, now make a conclusion that has a practical application, right? They're thoughtful, interesting asks, right? And that's essentially what we want students to do with their own work, and whether that's critically reading a text or working on a project, is just to keep turning it around and asking questions and trying to like nuance it and figure out new ways to work with product or material. And I think if that's emphasized, right, this sort of flexible, nimble thinking, we've got systems already set up that do that, like Six Sigma or like nimble project management, right? How are we thinking about that skill set in a broad packaged way that then students can apply anywhere professionally?
And I can probably add a So, I think this is very important question, honestly. If we think about how is it changing prospects for students? You know, over time, we have heard this, machines are going to take over humans. I've been hearing this. I think my kids are going to hear this, and this is going to continue. They are not. The only difference is what we do with machines is shifting, right? So we need to start thinking, yes, we need to understand how to properly use AI. However, we also need to think about, we need to tell students, why do they need to do it? Because if we do not tell them, why do they need to do it? Then for them, as a student, I can put myself back in the day. I can say, well, this is just a tool for me to make my assignments easier. That's it, which is not the case. Case is, when you go to a work, is your employer going to come to you and say, hey, by the way, you cannot use AI? That's not going to happen. For employer, what matters the most is, can you do this work faster and efficiently? So I think we need to tell our students, why is it important to understand it? Because if you don't use it now properly, you don't see what the future is. And how we can prepare students. I'm not looking for a new job, I just started. But I did a hit on, Indeed, last week, I do this every now and then, because that keeps me updated what's happening. If you go right now in engineering, you do a hit on Indeed and talk about artificial intelligence, you will find hundreds of jobs. And related to that actually is lots of AI is using Python programming. Now, me and Professor Clay, we were having this discussion last week, how to promote Python for engineering. We do have certain requirements. Our transfer institutions don't want us to include somehow in our courses. However, we decided that we will promote it in our robotics club. And actually, I was talking to a few of my students, and they are interested in starting a Python club, which is a part of a robotics club. So really, what I'm trying to say is that this is the future. Students are going to work with this. So let's make sure they know why they need to use it and what's the future. I think that's pretty much what I want to say. It's definitely going to shape everything that we are doing. So be ready for future, right?
I think it would be interesting to think about speaker series for like somebody from marketing. How do you use AI with your job nowadays? Someone from a different field, to just educate people who have been out of the field for a while, and also for students to get a sense of how AI is used and what skills do I need to be able to make myself marketable in the workforce.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this has been touched upon, but, I mean, workers have already been displaced from AI powered automation and from various industries who, for performing routine or repetitive tasks. And I think it will continue to displace workers, and this could lead to fewer entry-level jobs, but there will be changing job roles which focus on more of the higher level tasks. And as far as job creation, it will create new opportunities like AI development, data science, prompt engineering. And we should start thinking about integrating AI literacy into the curriculum and teaching students about these concepts and limitations and its potential for different industries. And we can also develop programs for evolving AI jobs. And we should also think about developing AI courses tailored to specific careers programs. I don't know if this was addressed, but I think we should focus more on skills such as critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, collaboration, and emotional intelligence, because these are skills that AI cannot replicate. And we, not now maybe, but maybe in the future, we can collaborate with local industries to understand the evolving needs of the workforce and adjust the curriculum accordingly. And this could involve incorporating industry relevant projects or certifications into degree programs. And one more thing I'll mention is that we should encourage students to embrace lifelong learning. And this is for any career, but especially with technology involved in any career, it's just rapidly and continually evolving.
Thank you. And I just wanted to butt in and add, when we were at Dream last week, one of the keynote speakers, Dr. Ethan Malik, said something that has stuck with me since we were there. And he said, if we're not teaching our students how to use AI effectively, we are teaching them our past and not their future. And I was like, yeah, that's true, because if I teach my students, because I still teach, you guys know that, if I teach my students the way I was taught, I'm not preparing them for the world that they're gonna go into. And just a little plug, if you all heard from Dream, we did get his book at Cedar, and we have some copies, so if folks want to borrow them, please bring them back. We only got a few. You can come by Cedar and grab one. Well, we've got about 5 minutes or so left, so I wanted to try to open up the floor in the Zoom for any questions that anyone may have for our panel, and I'll jump up and try to work both. Anyone here at PRC have any questions for the panel?
I do. Yes. Over to you, Deb.
So something that's always stuck with me is a conversation I had with another teacher. And it was, I use AI all the time. I don't want my students using it. And I just wonder, how do you envision catalyzing the change in thought of what it means to be knowledgeable in any particular subject, of this is something that is not here to replace you, again, your job's not in jeopardy. And how do we get that attitude to where you as a professional see the benefits in using it, but you don't see how important it is for your students?
I think that's a great question. Because I mean, that's a touchy area, you know, you did a lot of schooling and you love this thing and you focus on it, and you specialize in it, and it hits against a nerve, right? So it took me a long time to develop this skill and learn how to do this, and now what, you get to pop a couple of sentences in the computer and churn out something that it took me, I had to struggle to learn how, you know, and really wrap my mind around this and contend with this, and so should you, right? But I feel like that approach to things, we see that in a lot of other contexts too. My graduate mentor was terrible to me, and therefore it's okay if you have a bad experience, because that's par for the course, right? One way I think potentially is in these professional development moments, right? Some of those conversations can be around, okay, how do we begin to divorce ourselves from status and from what we think this brings and what we think our value is, whether that's the credential that I have or the school that I went to and what it's given, right? I mean, I think, what is it, there's a Socrates quote, the beginning of like wisdom is that realizing you don't actually know anything. That's not how he said it, but you know what I mean? It's about like learning, right, and cultivating. You think about brilliant people and polymaths who learn and make these connections for things. That's ultimately what we want students to do, right? But it will also require divorcing ourselves from, okay, I am grading an end product, and so my work is in how do I get you to churn out this product? Rather, how am I cultivating within you a kind of curiosity and an ability to make these broad-based connections so you can produce all these various things and leverage AI as is necessary to do that. But professional development might be an area for that. Now, am I volunteering to lead that workshop? Nope.
Come on,
Yeah.
I'm recruiting here.
Don't give me the microphone again.
I'm not volunteering either. I think what you're suggesting definitely needs to be done. Culture change is slow
Yeah.
and it's hard.
Yeah.
I think one thing that you can do, doesn't cost any money, is who are we hiring? You know, shouldn't that be a question that we ask every applicant to teach on this campus? How do you use AI in your classroom? We ask it about tech. So we need to just take it a step further.
Anybody else here, PRC, with a question? And I'll pop over to the chat. Okay, Robin, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Awesome, I will. Okay, I use ChatGPT, Copilot, a few other things with my students. I'm trying to get over my fear and anger at the fact that they just say, write a 500 words essay, give me 2 references, they submit it without even reading it. And they don't realize that ChatGPT drops in prompts that tells you it's ChatGPT. And then they wonder why they get a 0. And so I'm trying to force them to use it in a more fun way. What are you each doing with obviously you use AI. What programs are you using? How are you using them?
So, if I understand your question, what you are asking is, how am I using AI in my class? That's correct?
Yes, what specific programs are you using and how are you using them? What kinds of things are you what are some of the exercises you have students doing, that's specific with your AI tools that you're using?
Okay, so, you're right. You can ask students to write a 500-word essay and with one prompt that could be written. And that's where I think it's important for us to understand what we are asking students to do with AI. And then I won't take it long, I'll share this. I use AI, specifically ChatGPT, to teach programming to students. It's important for us to understand and convey this to students. What can AI do for you or what it cannot? Now, back in the day, when you were taught programming, you were scared of it because it's complex, because we all the time focused on learning the language and applying it. Over time, we changed things. We started using what we call block coding. So when I use AI, or specifically ChatGPT, I formulate a problem in a way that actually ChatGPT cannot directly answer. There are ways you can put questions. You can give, for example, and I might be getting into too specifics here, so sorry about that. I can build a circuit for my students, and I can ask them to go and ask ChatGPT and write a program. So even if they go copy paste it, it's most likely not going to work because hardware connections are different. So that might be just specific to engineering, but there are ways to use AI to teach students. Well, there are two lessons there. First of all, no, you do not just go and grab a code from ChatGPT. You use it to understand it. So, and teach the limitations. And then understand it. Of course, how do you use it in an efficient, in a better way, so that you can learn something? I hope that answers it.
That is a help. I could see, for students, I could see giving them a long list of code with an error, and they can, on the first time through, they go in and have to hand find the error. And the second time through, dropping it into ChatGPT and seeing it done in about 45 seconds. Because hello world can be a bitch to code.
That's correct.
Thank you. Well, in the interest of time, because I know if you guys are like me, we're all back to back all day, right? We're going to go ahead and close the panel. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for participating today. Thank you all. And thank you to everybody who has come both in person and online. Please, before you leave, if everybody could eat food, especially perishable things. And just one other quick thing, and online folks, I will get you in the chat. This is just the kickoff to our series. We're going to be offering more professional development on AI, prompt writing, different things of that nature, but we're also going to use this to kick off our professional learning community. So if you're interested in joining our PLC for AI, I have a sign-up sheet up here. I just need your name and email for me to go ahead and get that started. And for folks in Zoom land, if you want to put your name and email into the chat, I will copy it down on this sign-up sheet for you. But thank you all again and have a fantastic weekend.